A womb on rent. A womb on rent sounds atrocious but is a common practice and good business. The wombs for rent are found in undeveloped or developing countries and poor pockets in cities. The person who rents a womb for a child is normally from the richer class in India or abroad. It is a thriving business for the brokers who organize and bring together sellers and buyers. The women who rent their womb have to part with the delivered baby. It could be real or artificial insemination. This is normally with the permission of their wives who have a problem and therefore agree to this arrangement to have a child, a coveted bundle of life to brighten up their domestic and marital life. This renting of a womb and the woman's gynecology system is also known as surrogacy, and the woman who makes her body and reproductive apparatus available to a man for some fees is known as surrogate mother. Sukumar and Shubhra were college friends and they became lovers, and after period of courtships, live-in, and dates they married when Shubhra was 27 and Sukumar 35. It was an ideal pair and that too a love marriage which was accepted by both sides of the family. Shubhra was very affectionate and Sukumar was a bit possessive and even jealous, but only slightly. Both were executives in different multinational firms. 5 years passed and Shubhra showed no signs of conceiving, leave aside delivery. She did conceive a couple of times, but for some reasons there was a miscarriage. The doctors told her that it was not possible for her to deliver a child, and if she conceives and retains the embryo for 9 months there may be problems in delivery with risk for mother, baby, or both. There was a gnawing hunger for a child both in Shubhra and Sukumar's hearts and of course both sides of the family. And as couple of years passed this hunger increased, especially after the doctor declared that it was not possible for Shubhra to conceive and deliver except at the risk of her or child's life. Shubhra and Sukumar were submerged in gloom, and so was the family of Sukumar and Shubhra. Both families were modern and loving, so there was no pressure on Sukumar to legally separate from Shubhra and have a second marriage which could be more fruitful, and this thought never passed through minds of either Shubhra or Sukumar. The couple was anxious to find the solution. Sukumar suggested an option of adopting a child, but Shubhra didn't accept the proposal as she wanted the child of his DNA at least, if not her. Then they read about surrogacy and how it was possible to get surrogate mother through consultants. Though they demanded exorbitant fees, and as a surrogate mother was not very easy to find, and those who were ready again demand high fees. Surrogacy was an idea with which Shubhra became obsessed, even if it mean that Sukumar will fertilize other women by sleeping and mating with her almost like a wife. Thus search for a proper surrogate mother was launched, stirred by Shubhra, who was keener than Sukumar on this project. The consultants' fees will also be substantial. Several candidates did materialize. Some came from those with the dubious character, probably sex worker or call girl. This was rejected by Sukumar and Shubhra both, and some were not healthy enough and not fertile enough to conceive easily, and of course some were too costly. In some cases, if the husband accepts, the wife didn't, or if the wife accepts, the husband didn't and the family didn't. If the woman was married and had a child or two, she obviously was a good candidate, but in this case the problem arose either from the woman or her husband or her family, as noted earlier. But Shubhra was determined to find one, even at exorbitant cost. Her love for Sukumar coupled with love and desire for child was a strong motivation for her, and Shubhra didn't mind the cost. In fact, Shubhra was generous enough to ignore it. She of course won't object if Sukumar slept or mated with the woman strictly for the purpose of fertilizing. In this search the physical attractiveness was obviously not in consideration, since she was only to rent a healthy womb and be capable of delivering the child. Physical attractiveness could be a mere bonus. Finally, Shubhra, along with Sukumar and some brokers and consultants, did locate a girl who was ready. She was healthy and fertile as per the medical tests. She was poor, brought up in an orphanage, and was maintaining her livelihood by serving as cook or cleaner in several households. She was a pretty and sweet girl. As she was poor, she didn't charge much for this deal. Shanti was ready to oblige Shubhra by allowing her body and reproductive instruments to be rented and used for bearing a child which was to be delivered and handed over to the couple. The fact that she would enter a reasonably rich household, at least rich from her own standards, was also a factor in Shanti's agreement. As her name suggests, she was quite soft, sweet and submissive. She entered the household not demanding any advance for the deal. Shubhra was very happy as she found Shanti not having any desire to cast a net over her husband Sukumar by her charm and sexuality. Shubhra and Shanti were soon bound in a relationship which was a curious blend of affection and desire to use Shanti as a child-bearing machine. They became very friendly and almost as sisters with no trace of jealousy. Shanti even addressed Shubhra as Didi, elder sister, and Sukumar as Sahib. Shubhra and Sukumar pertained to higher middle class, not very rich but comfortable in their financial status and lifestyle. This was a luxurious ambience for Shanti, the poor orphan working as a domestic servant. Sukumar performed his duty as a stud bull with a job to fertilize Shanti. He was not supposed to develop any other relationship of love, attraction, or any other attachment or excessive kindness. Shanti was very attractive, which was a bonus for Sukumar. Though he avoided sleeping with her except on some occasions when Shubhra pushed him into bedroom and bed with Shanti. Shubhra said that if you are mating with her so infrequently, that will be against the very purpose we have hired her for, at some cost besides the cost of her maintenance. Shanti soon became a member of the family. 1 year passed in this amicable triangular atmosphere. Slowly Sukumar's interest in Shanti grew beyond her body as a child-bearing machine. He became kind with the touch of attraction, and his frequency of going to the bed with her increased, which pleased both Shubhra and Shanti, who was enjoying being a bedfellow with the Sahib. Sukumar was good in bed. Shanti was equally responsive and active while making love, though it was supposed to be for a purpose, not for joy and sexual ecstasy when reaching the climax. Orgasm at climax is a strong bonding force, and both got trapped in this bond. Shubhra was happy at this development in beginning, and though she was a little disappointed as Shanti had not conceived yet, she was willing to give her time to perform her duty. In this respect there was a change in behavior and attitude of all three players in the game of surrogacy. As 1 year became 2, Shubhra started becoming jealous of Shanti, with whom she had to share Sukumar's love, sexual and emotional. Perhaps Shanti became more and more confident of her own value and pleased that her mate, her Sahib Sukumar, was becoming attached to her. She was having an edge over Shubhra in sharing sexual pleasures and flavor with Sukumar. An emotional bonding was also sprouting between Sukumar and Shanti, which disturbed Shubhra. She grew more restless and anxious as time passed without Shanti's conception. Shanti was an interactive girl, and soon the servant Shyamu, a whole-time cook and cleaner, became attracted to her. But Shanti didn't give him any lift. The patience of Shubhra was under test, but this didn't affect Shanti and even Sukumar. Shanti started asserting herself, though illegitimate member of an unusual family triangle. She lived almost at par with Shubhra and even started neglecting Shubhra in her expression of love and respect. There were some angry scenes between Shubhra and Shanti, who had been using the cosmetic and even part of the wardrobe of Shubhra and appeared as attractive, fashionable women of middle class in her looks as well as behavior. This, coupled with delay in conception and Sukumar's growing attraction towards his new mate, started worrying Shubhra. When Shubhra sometimes commented and let out her feelings against Shanti, Sukumar's reply was, "It was only you who insisted on getting a surrogate mother, and if she is not able to conceive, it is not her fault. Perhaps the destiny doesn't want us to have a child in this manner." Meanwhile, Shubhra's servant Shyamu, after having been frustrated in his advances towards Shanti, who didn't give him any lift, wanted to teach her a lesson. Even Sukumar's driver was interested in her, but beyond suggestions of his intentions he didn't go any further. Then something happened which triggered Shubhra's ire and anger against Shanti. Shubhra did something which was cruel by any standards. This was adversely commented upon by Sukumar. "How can you be so unkind to her? She has come here only at your bidding. It is not her fault if she is not conceiving, and beyond her maintenance we have not paid any price to her. In fact, she is a nice girl without any claims on my love and interest, and your jealousy is totally unjustified." After violent altercation, Shubhra almost pushed her out of the home with tears in Shanti's eyes. Shanti left without much money in her hand. In fact, Shubhra had taken away some of the gifts and dresses which she had given to Shanti earlier when Shubhra was well disposed to her. Shubhra's words were, "You are a woman ambitious and cunning, you are trying to replace me in the home and in the love of my beloved husband, Sukumar, whom you have ensnared in the network of your charm. It is all your fault, you have not done the job, providing us with a child for which you have been hired. On top of it you have stolen some of my dresses and jewelry as you have access to my cupboard. So get out. I had sympathy for you before, but you have exploited it. So Kumar did pay her some compensation, though without Shubhra's approval. Shanti left with almost nothing. She didn't know where to go and she was crying bitterly in the hutment of her friend. When police came and arrested her on complaint filed by Shubhra that her jewellery had been stolen by Shanti, who had an access to her wardrobe and the chest where the jewellery was kept, often unlocked. With the influence of Shubhra, though Sukumar was not in favour, a case was filed for stealing. With Shanti's background as a domestic hand and now placed in rich house played a role in getting her convicted with imprisonment of 2 years. In any case, Shanti didn't have any resource to get her case defended by a competent lawyer, and Shubhra was well equipped with money and connections to win the case. Her ire was enhanced by her jealousy, as she thought Shanti was trying to trap Sukumar in the net of her love and sex. Shanti was jailed, though jewellery was not recovered even after many attempts to search and interrogate Shanti. She only pleaded not guilty. Sukumar was not happy with Shubhra and he used to say, "How are you so sure that Shanti only has stolen it? Your action is triggered by jealousy, which is totally unjustified." But Shubhra used to say, "Jewellery has been stolen and her background and the circumstances indicate that only she has stolen it, only she had access to our bedroom and locker in the cupboard, she deserves the punishment." The servant Shyamu after a couple of months took leave from Sukumar supposedly to visit his village. A year passed and Shyamu didn't return. Shanti didn't have, of course, any resource to file an appeal against the judgment against her which imprisoned her. But police was making inquiry on the whole on their own to recover the jewellery, and they somehow reached the conclusion that it was Shyamu who had stolen it to start his whole new career and to teach a lesson to Shanti, who didn't respond to his amorous advances. That's why he left the household of Sukumar and Shubhra, and he knew that the suspicion will certainly go against Shanti and not against him, since he was a loyal servant for many years. Shanti, on the other hand, was a newcomer who had access to every nook and corners in the house, including the wardrobe, cupboards, chests containing valuable. Shyama was arrested and jewellery was recovered, though part of it was sold by him. Shubhra was racked guilt of punishing Shanti, who was innocent. She remembered how cruel she often was due to her frustration that the rented womb and reproductive apparatus of Shanti didn't bear any fruit even after 2 years, and she was jealous that she was trying to be close to Sukumar. Sukumar was of course justified in his view that Shanti was honest and innocent. Shubhra went alone to meet Shanti in jail before she was released by court in the face of new evidence. Surprisingly, Shanti didn't have any grudge against Shubhra and still called her Didi, an elder sister. In fact, Shanti had a special gift ready for Shubhra. A newborn kid of 4 months. As she handed over the gift in the arms of Shubhra, she said with tears in her eyes, "Didi, this kid is yours and you are the rightful owner, and I have kept in the womb and delivered only as a surrogate mother on your behalf and on behalf of Sahib." It was a scene charged with emotion. Shubhra's eyes was welled up due to the happiness of having her baby in arms, though her happiness was tinged with guilt and gratitude towards Shanti, who had let her womb on hire. As the two mothers, Shubhra and Shanti, hugged each other, the baby looked on with curiosity and puzzle. There was a deep anguish, sadness, which Shanti tried to conceal when the child was given away to Shubhra, and Shanti cuddled the kid warmly for the last time as one born out of her flesh and nurtured in her womb. In a couple of days Shanti was released. Shubhra and Sukumar searched for a decent job for Shanti and got her married to their own driver with consent of Shanti. And as dowry, the stolen jewellery was given to Shanti besides the agreed rent of the womb, for the surrogate mother. Meanwhile, Shanti herself after a year gave birth to a child as a real mother, not a surrogate one.